what did people think of the gay men moving in here? The families?
Well, they, some of them, I guess, objected, and some of them maybe, I think you said, you heard that they came over from Sayville even. A lot of people came over from Sayville and caused problems here.
That was a little bit later on, however. You said that a lot of people objected to the nude bathing.
Yes, we did not like that. Mm-hmm. I still don't. I think that we should set aside a strip at the West End and a strip at the East End, and if that's what you want to do, go nude bathing, that's where you should go. We shouldn't have to walk in between you to get down to the ocean.
Could we get a little air conditioning on, Mark, please? So a lot of people were upset and they sold their houses, and as more people sold houses, the gay men bought them, and thus more gay residents. Now, did you, personally, your family, did you interact with the gay men, or did you kind of stand off? Or?
Well, we didn't want them to, of course, have anything to do with our kids, because our kids were young then, growing up actually, and so we objected a little bit to things going on. Of course, we didn't let the kids go out at night at all. The hotel used to have, years ago, I can remember when they had a player piano. You put a nickel in, I think, and they had rolls that played music. But we stopped doing that.
Why?
Sometimes, well, actually, you know what? Sometimes the fire department from Patchogue would come, and they would bring a band even. They'd bring an orchestra, 3 pieces, and they'd really come and have but my mom said, well, you can't go up there then because they would get drunk.
So it wasn't only the gays that the people were upset about.
No,
right. You said that there was a lot of carrying on going on in the dunes. Is that what they call the meat rack now? Is that the area? And they would.
Well, yes, I would say so.
And people were upset by that.
Yeah.
And they would stage raids.
They got Captain Hawkins.
There was a Captain Hawkins
to be a sort of a policeman or whatever he was. He went down and got them and brought them out. And arrested them, I guess. Yeah.
I remember in the 50s when that would happen here, that they would stage raids in the meat rack and bring the men out who they caught there and bring them onto the mainland and arraign them on one charge or another, and the names were printed in the newspapers, and a lot of men lost their jobs and families as a result. I remember that back in the 50s. You were telling me that in your days here, your husband was working here, and that one resident, don't say his name, because he still lives here,
right,
came on to your husband.
Right. And George said, stay away from me and my boys, or I'll never come near you again. I'll never do your plumbing again.
Now, this was after the hurricane. I don't know what year. Maybe you can help me here. The community house building. There was a building on the mainland that was donated to Cherry Grove, and it was floated over here.
Floated over, yeah.
What year? Do you know about what year that would have been?
I don't remember. But
okay. Now, as more gays bought homes and vacations here, those resentments grew.
Right.
It was probably a territorial thing for,
right.
The lifestyles were so different at that time. And you were telling me that ad hoc meetings were held at the hotel to smooth over differences.
Oh,
and you gave me or somebody did anyway, some notes at an ad hoc meeting at the time. There's a man, I don't think he's identified, who stood up at one of these ad hoc meetings, which were used to sort of smooth over differences between residents here. And this man stood up and said, as more gay men bought homes and vacationed in Cherry Grove, resentments between community members worsened. To smooth over differences, ad hoc committees were held, okay, this is the introduction to it, were held periodically. Jeanne Skinner gave me a copy of one Cherry Grover's opinion on the matter. And this is what he said. There will be a lot of discussion today with regard to the situation which now exists in Cherry Grove. I do not know what the main complaint will be, but I do believe that the main fault or blame for the condition that exists lies right with some of our own people, be they owners or renters. Going back quite a few years, when first the homosexuals found Cherry Grove to be an ideal spot for their lifestyle, those of us who own property and our parents before us tried to accept the trend as gracefully as possible. We were willing to grant anyone the privilege of living their own lives as they saw fit, inside the privacy of their houses, as long as they didn't try to push their ways on us. However, it seems as though many have gradually come to think that their way is the only way, and that anyone who does not agree with their ideas can go to the devil. A few years ago, a young woman won a case in the Hamptons where the judgment was handed down that sunning on a blanket was permissible, that nude was not lewd. But did that satisfy the exhibitionists? No. Was an area at the west or the east or west end of the Grove accepted as reserved for nude sunbathing? No. Instead, it is anywhere and everywhere, and those of us who do not go in for this have to either step over and around those who are nude or not go to the beach at all. Besides which, they even parade up and down swinging their suits and shorts in their hands. Suits for both men and women are brief enough today. It does seem as though what does pass for covering now could be kept on, except in specially designated areas. Many have even become more bold as to how they appear down around the store and the dock area, going topless and with just G-strings. Word of this has gotten around New York City as well as locally, and I'm sure many of these people you call tourists have come first to gawk and then to join the crowd by stripping also. With laxness in morals comes laxness in all things. There is lovemaking on the beach and even on an open deck near me, which I am forced to hear and observe if I were sitting on my own deck, or else stay inside my house, which I think comes to the point of ignoring or denying me my rights. I feel that lovemaking between male and female, two males or two females, should be confined to the privacy of a house and not done outdoors for public view. We do have some young children here, and they should not be exposed to such displays. I even feel that one should not lie nude on an open deck visible from the boardwalks. If you have a fence around your deck and wish the sun in the nude and someone walks in on you without knocking, that it is their own fault if they see something they object to. Those who have taken such license in regard to filthy language and disregard of morals have to accept the blame for what Cherry Grove has now become. How we can restore it to what it is, to what it was 20 years ago, or even 10, I do not know, unless we set up some rules and regulations for ourselves and abide by them. Then we must let the police department know what they are and that we expect them to enforce them, rather than turn their backs and look the other way, as they have been doing. I have wanted to bring this up at property owner meetings for over a year, but there was always so much other business that there was never any time, and once when it was brought up by another member, it was laughed at and ignored. Signed, an unidentified resident. Eventually, they found that these meetings got worse, and they discontinued them in the 70s. Now, your mother was the postmistress from till 1962, is that correct?
Postmaster.
Postmaster.
She said that no matter whether you're male or female, that you were a postmaster.
At that time, the post office was not where it is now. It was across where Top of Bay is,
Yeah, right.
across the alley there. You also told me that at that time, in the 50s and 60s, it was taboo for people to come here. I remember there used to be postcards that said, Mother thinks I'm at Ocean Beach, or people in New York who would come to Cherry Grove would tell people they're going to the Hamptons
Bill
or Ocean
Fable.
Beach. They would never say they'd come to Cherry Grove. That was
Bill Fable
no-no.
had those postcards.
And there's an artist named Ivan Beckhoff who designed them, because I remembered him. I was here in those days as a visitor. I was very young. At some point along the line, they built a fence between Cherry Grove and Sailor's Haven. Why did they do that?
Well, the houses that were on that last walk said people would come up from Sailor's Haven and just, there was a boardwalk at the time, and they would just get up and not only on the boardwalk, they would come right in people's walks to their houses. And Johnny Caldarella had a house there, and one time he was there, he was in the shower, and he heard these people out front, and he kind of looked at, he saw they were looking in the window, so he just went out and displayed himself.
Were they coming to see the queers, or did they they were just curious, whoever was there? Or?
I think they, well, mostly, I think they just wondered what the houses were like. Of course, they didn't expect anybody to be there, but so Johnny surprised them.
And there was a lot of dissension about whether to put that fence up or not.
Yes, some people wanted it and some people didn't. And when they first did it, I don't know about now, but when they first did it, it had to have a gate where they could go through. I don't know if that had something to do with the fire departments or not. It had something to do that they had to have that gate. So I don't even know if they still have one.
Yes.
Oh yeah, sure.
think they
And
do.
it's locked.
Right,
Isn't it?
okay, it's locked.
No more. I know there have been many discussions, lock the gate, unlock the gate.
It's been open for 2 summers.
There have been wars here over locking the gate or not locking the gate.
Well, I know when I was down at Ocean, where we vote, one time somebody brought me up, not from there, but from Point of Woods, and he drove up through the middle of the island, but when he came here, he stopped, and I had to get out and go up and come around and go on the boardwalk.
Somebody, I don't think it was you, I think it was Mary Capsalis, who was a woman who lived here for many years. She died a few years ago, and she was a writer.
She was also a barber.
Yes, she was also a barber, Mary the barber. She told me that she remembered in the 50s and the 60s, maybe even the 70s, that they would come out on buses. They would take buses from the city or get off at the train station, and there would be local people who would jeer at all the gay people. And they would get on the bus to come to the ferry, and they would throw rocks at the bus. Very scary. I don't remember that, but I do remember stories about be careful when you go through Sayville, because it was dangerous. It was considered dangerous, and many of the townies would come over here to beat up on the gay people, and police seemed to look the other way.
Yeah, I don't know why they did, but
Yeah.
I think we're doing better with the police now.
Yeah.
Getting more here.
Police discouraged charges being made, and eventually, I guess the residents themselves here requested more police or allocated more money to protect the residents. The gay people are being beat up rather badly.